Train Fellowship. We want to thank Trinity for the use of this incredible space, and thanks to Daniel for his help in making this possible with a lovely floor and adjustments here and there, and lots of extra stuff that he was able to bring from Thank you.
The two display cabinets were from someone that donated them. I had that kitchen in the house several years ago. He called me up and said, I have some cabinets if you have a use for them. And it's like,
Ta-da.
Rich, can you use these?
Yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah.
So I think you all know, well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rich Kiddle. I'm the former admin here from years ago. I also want to thank Trinity for your awesome support on my path to ministry, including going to seminary, which you funded. I did the travel, you did the seminary. It was a great teamwork. So thank you. Our key members are here today doing the magic stuff. Matthew is at a UCC church. Rob is at St. Anne's Catholic. And David is a minister of music who has played the piano, the organ, and I don't know what else in 12 different denominations.
You can't make up his mind.
I think it's Dave.
Manually not enough.
The
We're
other,
in the ecumenical course in heaven, right?
the other important thing to know today is that everything you see here, except the lighting and the space, came from donations, not from the Trinity budget. So we could spend the day just running trains violently, which a lot of people like.
Absolutely.
We're going to start with one semi-crazy train and see how it goes from there. David, how we doing?
It's the wild one, right?
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe never ran on these rails. That's why it's crazy.
You got lost.
2,000 miles ago.
I don't know, it's gonna be connected sooner. Somebody's buying Norfolk Southern.
Yeah, but that'll be Union Pacific.
That'll be Union Pacific.
Yeah, okay. Wait another 10 years.
Hey, y'all. So this is the least prototypical train of the day, just to show you which track we have running so far. So instead of running crazy trains, what we try to do here is represent why Hagerstown's called the hub city. And so many businesses have the word hub in their name, and lots of folks have forgotten why.
I thought it was because of hubcaps when I moved here. I did. I thought they must make hubcaps in Hagerstown.
Now, there's an idea for a business.
Well, and then I discovered why it's hub city.
So it really comes down to the railroads, not the roads. So over the last 3 years, we've built from Pinesburg to Williamsport to Hagerstown to Smithsburg and up over the hill. Let's see if I can get to the next slide. That's representative of where we are. That's Washington County.
That's just the count.
Just the county, not the city. So the nickname hub comes from all of those lines running into Hagerstown like a wagon wheel. And I took a look at how many other places in the eastern U.S. could actually call themselves a hub. I couldn't find one.
Wow.
There are massive yards, but they have lines coming in and lines going out, in some cases separated by 7 miles. That's not a hub. It's a lot more business, but it's not. So early on, Hagerstown wasn't a hub. That's supposed to be Hagerstown at the hub. Sorry for the resolution. You have to imagine.
You can still see the lines coming in.
So 11 and 40, right? Is that a hub? No, it's a crossroads. 70 and 81, not a hub, it's a crossroads. So the spokes of this thing were initially the B&O in the Western Maryland, but then Pennsylvania, N&W, B&O, Reading were the major spokes. But then as many as 10 other railroads had trackage rights. So the better part of 15 railroads made up the hub. I know there's a whole lot more to tell, but some of you may be satisfied at this point and want to go take a nap. So we'll call you hobos if that's what you do. But if anybody needs to leave at this point, that's the first part of the story. The rest of the story comes after your departure, if that's what you want. Anybody want to leave? Okay. Anybody who stays has to pay $100.
Okay, nice seeing you, Richie.
So back in the 1860s, the first company to reach Hagerstown as a railroad was the B&O. And the B&O came up because their target was central Hagerstown. They came up and created a station. Go ahead. See them coming up? That's not what they used at the time, but yeah, they needed some encouragement to get here. So they created a station right across from the Dag Barn, where the Herald Mail Building is now. And that's what you see on the screen. And then in 1872, the Western Maryland reached Hagerstown. And a year later, the Western Maryland reached Williamsport, which was its main objective at the time, in order to take coal off the C&O Canal and deny those businessmen in D.C. an advantage. So there. In 1884, there was a better connection created from Williamsport west over into Cherry Run into West Virginia to meet the B&O. So the B&O, the hub was starting to form. And then in 1900 or so, this big company, you think we have big companies now? This was a big company. They wanted to build a transcontinental railroad, so they started buying up little railroads. And all these little railroads were designed to connect to the Western Maryland, which was designed to connect to the Reading, the central of New Jersey, and the New Haven. So this thing would have stretched from central Illinois to New England, and it would have paralleled the B&O to Pennsy and what was the one further north?
New York,
Yeah.
with New York Central and
Thank
Jersey
you.
Central,
Thank you.
because they became Hinz Central.
This is why he's here.
There we go. Fills in
Color
the gaps.
commentary is good.
My grandfather was a conductor.
Oh, very cool.
So then, there was all this collaboration that the Western Maryland did with different people, including the Reading, the Pennsy, the N&W. They bought lines, they built lines, they consolidated, and the hub kept getting better and better. And this is an aerial view of what the Western Maryland shops look like, basically at the center of the hub. So the Western Maryland also, because of all those connections, opened a deep water port in Port Covington near Baltimore, which our color commentary man knows a lot about.
That's the Port of Baltimore.
Then in 1906, we reached Cumberland, another connection with the B&O, and by about the same year, reached Elkins, which was a massive place for all the coal of West Virginia to come together.
And B&O is Baltimore and Ohio?
Correct.
Okay, because we're not all train aficionados. I expected that that's what it was, but why was Ohio important?
Because it followed the old Cumberland Road, which settled the Midwest.
Yep.
Initially, it was, we're gonna start in Baltimore, and we had this hope, we had this intent to get to Ohio.
Because that opens up the whole Midwest here.
Yeah. So this is the station in Elkins, and if you imagine, you walk across the tracks to where that coal car is, and you go backwards about 100 feet, that's where my granddad worked as a steam engine boiler maker. And this is his retirement document, 1954. So where are we? After his retirement, we were visiting up there, and he and my grandma brought me from Elkins to Williamsport by Western Maryland passenger trains. David?
Ready, Maryland?
No?
Oh, I'm just saying,
Did I miss Reading?
you did. I think, I don't know where you're on the script.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I missed Reading. Well, let's send Reading and then do Western
Well, you
Maryland.
tell where the road, you tell where you're on the
How about if I talk about the Western Maryland collaborating with the Reading to get to Cumberland by a different method?
Supposed to be counted,
There's the coal train coming.
Now, why is Cumberland important? Is it agricultural? What is it now, Cumberland? Is it just the Potomac? I mean, what makes Cumberland good real estate?
Cumberland was one of the first major places that were in access to the West. Way back before the West was settled, when the Midwest was started, Cumberland was where the roads, it's where the roads came together, the rivers came together, the trains came together.
I mean, Robert E. Lee, that's the way he got to Gettysburg.
Yeah. David, I think that's going too fast. No. Are those cows moving? How long have they been alive?
Well, they've been in there all week.
I don't know.
You can go on, you'll be there.
Rich, the other thing
Can you
about
give it a
that word
push?
Covington and connection is what happened after World War II. I told you about that going the other way.
Yeah. A good import location.
All the cars went that way.
Yeah. Well, once we get, why don't we remove him from the track? So that we can get the next one going. So let's do the passenger train.
And this is all HO, correct?
This is all HO scale except for this line right in front of me, which is N scale. That represents
Oh, I see.
Route 11 from Williamsport to Hagerstown, because the train didn't really follow Route 11. And it's of a different scale because it's not the main reason we're here,
Yeah.
but we wanted to put it here. The Western Maryland was not a huge passenger train company, and they stopped in 1959.
We love that old engine.
Smooth. He has no problems.
Now, is this electric, steam, what was ordered, all of the above?
That one is steam.
Right.
I mean, it's pretend steam.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No, I mean, as a functioning train, did they have diesel, they have steam, they have electric in any portion of it?
They never had overhead
Okay,
lines. They never had electric lines next to the tracks.
okay.
They had steam only until the 40s.
Okay,
And then they had what is called diesel electric.
okay.
So there's a diesel engine
Generator,
and electric motors between the wheels.
yeah.
And that's what most diesels are. There were some diesel hydraulics, but we never had one.
Cool.
So Potomac Edison opened the Williamsport plant in 1927. This is it being built. And my dad worked there from the 50s through the 70s. And I worked there on a maintenance crew in the summer of 1970. So I got to know that place from 80 feet below ground to about 200 feet above ground. Stop. This thing has a mind of its own. So, are we ready for World War II? Number 5, the troop trip.
Yeah, we are. It's very Charles about 100th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Over 100 years, is that 100 years?
Yeah, they're celebrating that.
So World War II brought a huge increase in train traffic.
And even like the truck, the tanks and
Tanks, ammunition, troops. I mean, the first 2 cars, one is for troops and one is a kitchen car.
You get the Midwest to the East Coast,
That's it.
the railroad.
So, you know, the 4 major East Coast railroads got pushed almost over the edge. There was almost no maintenance done, and so everything got worn really hard because you had to keep moving those people and those things. Those 2 cars, the troop car and the kitchen car, my great uncle and his wife lived in those down at Union Bridge before the train station was built in Hagerstown. He was chairman of the maintenance away union, and they let him live with his wife in those 2 for fun. So that's,
Not in the tanks, though.
that's
But think about that, that's why there are things like Letterkenny up to the north, where all the stuff gets repaired, because it came through here and went back through here, and if it wasn't working, they sent it up there, because this was easier than taking it over the mountains. And then they could just ship it back the other way quickly.
So the section from Williamsport to Hagerstown, I know this might be hard to believe because the Western Maryland went from Baltimore to Cumberland to Pennsylvania to, it was all over the place. You know, I don't know how much trackage Western Maryland had, maybe 300 or 400 miles, considering double track, branches, and et cetera. From Williamsport, Pittsburgh, Williamsport to Hagerstown was the busiest section of the whole road. And it's because everything came together and then everything dissipated. And so it was double track all that way, and there were helpers down next to David. See those 2 engines sitting there just waiting for a train? They were the helpers who would push the train over this incredibly steep Williamsport hill. Okay, if you're driving in a car, what's steep? 20, 25%.
Right.
Steep on a train is just 1.2%. You don't want those steel wheels slipping. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So,
And double track, how often do they have? I mean, you always see single track where they switch and things like that, but this was so busy that the investment in double track was essential
yeah,
to keep it moving.
yeah. Even today, most busy railroads have single track with what are called passing sidings.
Right.
And the longer the trains get, the longer the passing siding has to be. The Norfolk Southern through Hagerstown is that way. The yards may have 15 or 20 tracks, but you get out of the yard, you're down to single.
Right.
those guys do stuff. So this is a terrible rendition of a great picture that I took in 1968. And next year when we have this again, we'll get a better version of that picture. That's the helpers sitting waiting for a train to come east so they can push it. And sometimes there was 4 engines. And when the train came by to be pushed, the train would let go of the caboose. The engines on the helper would sneak in behind, grab the caboose, and then push the train forward. I visited the Williamsport freight station, which you've seen here lots of times between the 50s and the 70s. And even as a teenager, I was welcomed there as a peer. I was treated as an adult. They told me what was coming, they told me what I had missed, and gave me all kinds of grief because I missed it. But they were very kind and educational, which it meant a lot, and it still does. And that's why those of you who were at the Harry Potter thing last December 26th have seen this symbol, because the Western Maryland was fast, it was friendly. By functional, it means they had real incredible discipline while they were being friendly. It's hard to make that combination work. But faithful doesn't belong here, right? Actually, it does. In '71, I was invited to the Roundhouse in Hagerstown because they had a steam engine there that was being repaired. There was a Santa laying across the top of the steam engine, and they had a Christmas service. They had a Christian service in a corporation. Would that happen today? Not unless it was a church company. So they were faithful. They were people of their word. The Western Maryland did not last forever. It had some issues with consolidation of railways. Even the St. Lawrence Seaway took business away from East Coast railways trying to get grain into the ocean. But in the 60s, the coal business from West Virginia, the lumber business from West Virginia was dissipating very, very quickly. And that was where the majority of the Western Maryland's profits were. So Penn Central died in 1970, and that was pretty much the twilight for all these comparatively little railroads trying to work together instead of big railroads walking on. Shall we send the service scheme? Let's do it.
You gotta run it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have the power. So the reason this is called the circus scheme, that was what rail fans called it. I forget what the railway called it, something boring, but it was so much more colorful than anything that went before.
The circus what?
And so when did Western Maryland end?
So depending on what you mean by end, as a truly independent carrier, it ended in '64. But it still had engines labeled, all that. And it operated mostly independently until the chassis system took it over in '72.
I bet some of the old guys who worked on this, like 100 years ago, they saw this today, they just shake their heads.
Yeah.
I know what you've done.
Well, I'd like to think that grandmother's up there looking down and smiling.
Yeah.
Are we ready for CSX?
Yeah.
David?
CSX is the current one. It comes into one of the coal terminals in Baltimore.
Yeah, CSX is the combination of B&O, C&O, Western Maryland, and a couple other tiny things. No one knows exactly why they chose the 3 letters.
And that's the other one, the Northern. There's CSX and CNX.
Where is CNX?
CNX goes into the northern coal terminals coming from Pennsylvania. And CSX goes into the southern, it's where you get your coal from Pennsylvania, your coal from Maryland and West Virginia at the port.
I gotta talk to you about
Wow.
Maybe the engines like.
and that's one of the newbies.
Yeah, it was working. It's brand new.
Yeah, the coal comes into 2 terminals in Baltimore, and some of it goes directly to Norfolk. And they top it off in Norfolk because they have to wait till they get enough draft in the boats when they go south down to Chesapeake. See, all this is from my port chaplaincy task. All right, engine not running.
So why should we care now that the Western Maryland is gone? The hub still exists, and the effect of the Western Maryland as a strong, positive, ethical corporation is a great example for all corporations and all people, from my prejudiced point of view. I have to admit.
Well, also, I remember during the pandemic, waiting for the train to go, and it was so short. And after the pandemic, it was a celebration to see that now it takes sometimes 8 minutes for a train to go by. That tells me that the economy has recovered from the pandemic, where essentially our business was on hold. And you can see it as, you know, usually you get stopped at that light at the train station at Northern. It's sometimes 8 minutes long.
I've heard people say 15 to 20, but maybe, I don't know if they're exaggerating or not. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've done 10. I've done more than 10.
So the other difference is, if you look at one of those trains today, quite often they are intermodal.
Oh yeah, most
Right?
of them are.
As opposed to the cargo-specific trains that we've been showing.
Right.
Huge switch.
Yep.
Those things come here from the port and back to the port, and sometimes they're trucked. If it's going to go up to 81 or something, they'll truck it out of the port to Hagerstown, and then they'll go to New England that way.
So Western Maryland ended passenger services in 1959. However, it doesn't mean that we didn't see passenger trains. Western Maryland continued steam excursions well into the 1970s, maybe mid to late 70s. Steam like the NKP 759 and the Reading 2102, David. They're even He has Reading on his shirt. He paid me to say that.
I like to read, I'm a reader. Reading railroad.
So the big question of the day, how does all of this enable a fellowship? Isn't it a bunch of geeks just banding things together? Well, when guys get together, I'm only a guy, I've never been a girl, so I can only talk about guys. When guys get together, they like to do something, right? And so we gather, we fix rail, we build buildings, we argue about the future, what's our priority, and then at the end of a session, somehow this just happened organically. We started sitting down in a circle and talking. And what do we talk about? Trains a little bit, but what's going on in your life? No. What's your faith? So,
And there are fewer people taking advantage of those opportunities now. People don't join anything. They sit at their homes on their computers. They don't join anything. Young people just don't understand joining. They really don't.
so we have to convert them.
Well, we'll just keep doing what you're doing and don't worry about that.
So the hub still lives, and we are thriving with it. what you see today is 4 of us, but at one point or another, there's been 8 or 9. 2 of them are teenagers, and one of them isn't quite sure whether he's agnostic or atheist, but he is great at fixing engines, so no problem.
Now, Richard, what happened in this building? This is the hub. What
This is-
happened in that building? Why is it covered? Why is it important?
So those are basically repair locations.
Uh-huh.
There was,
So out of the weather.
at one point, we could show 5 locations in the roundhouse. The actual roundhouse had something like 20-some. If we depicted that, there'd be nothing else there. So, and then the transfer table to the other building was for either more difficult, long-term, that kind of thing. That help?
Yeah, it does. I just didn't know if it was just a place for the engineers to hang out for a while and then go to the road, but it's really.
Well, the engineers found a way, but they didn't always sit where they were.
Yeah, well, we don't always plan it that way.
Any other questions? Pardon me? What is it?
We got one that's all engines.
Oh, that's at the very end.
Let's try.
And we're close, Les. So I have a request.
Oh, yes, I will say this. My grandmother passed around 1895, and at her service, she requested her music. She was active in the choir in the Baptist Church in Michigan. And so many of the songs that were sung were Christian songs based on railroad and all of the metaphors that could be used, as you said, about faithfulness, discipline, reliability, somebody carrying the heavy load for us in life.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, these songs were well beyond me and my experience in the Baptist Church in the 60s and 70s growing up, but it spoke to an era. And, you know, she hosted men in Michigan who would come to the South for the few jobs that were there in the Great Depression, to work at the car plant right down the street. So she ran a bed and breakfast, washed clothes, and did all that. And she was a hard worker. But her sisters in the choir sang these old-fashioned songs that she had grown up with. But again, it was surprising to me about the penetration of the railroad industry in her lives, in their lives. You know, so she was born around 1900.
At one point, 10% of the working men in the U.S. were doing something related to the railroad.
That's pretty neat.
Actually, Brunswick Railroad, all the churches were, wherever you were in the railroad, you know, was there. If you were an engineer or administrator, you went to the Episcopal Church. If you were lower than that, you know, were train yard, then you were the Methodist or the Baptist Church. So they were actually designated by the yard.
One of those songs that I like, life is like a mountain railroad with an engineer that's brave. That's it. There's a bunch of those. So if you know any guys who could benefit from getting out of the house and doing something with a little purpose, it doesn't matter what skill they have or don't have, even if they just are a pair of ears and want to sit. Bring them along, send them down.
Say something, because I'm so new and ignorant about all this, it looks to me like there's just a whole bunch of started but unfinished projects. So what's
Yes.
next? Where are you going next with this?
What would you like to do?
I have no idea.
We have the need for building buildings, which could be made out of plastic or cardboard or out of a kit. Some are glued, some are not. Some are approximate, some are less than approximate. Some are really rough representations that we want to improve on. One of our members has created one of these pieces, and I think it's the first time that he's created one, and it went really, really well. So, do you want to lay track? Do you want to paint? Do you want to do woodworking?
Where did you get this that represents, you know, your small gauge line? I mean, that's beautiful artwork. Where did you get that?
The man behind the camera created it.
Really, it's cool, it's convenient.
I actually used Google Earth and took photos. I had to do some manipulation to get them to look like that. Those are real buildings along that route.
Well, yeah.
And trees.
Very cool. So using technology.
Route 11 from Williamsport.
It seems to me, maybe I'm really
I
naive.
think
and
part of
not-
it is.
I was
Like
gonna
these
say,
pieces
because I
of practice
recognize
lying
some of
around.
the houses.
Yeah, well, that's really,
Well,
it
you
took
you
one
have
from
to
the side.
imagine if there's a gap.
At the end there, it's right down from the new ballpark.
Yeah,
It was the old trolley building, right, just a block away from the ballpark.
And then way over there is.
Is Williamsport. I start, if you look there, it's the buildings that are still existing down there. So, it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fascinating.
Send your guys.